Roger, let's go to workflow automation. I mean, that's what we are here together today to discuss. So we need to reinvent how the way our businesses work. And for that, we need to reinvent the way that we work. And a major force in that is the new era, I would say, of workflow automation that we are now witnessing. So what's the first finding from your research in that chapter?
Yes, indeed. Different pathways, alternative pathways, were very significant in all the interviews. So, providing context, I think everyone recognized that as organizations, they needed frictionless customer interaction. They needed to exploit data to drive insights. That was common to everyone. They also needed speed. And as Vargha has said, we couldn't wait months or years. We had to operate in days and weeks. So there were quick wins were important. But actually getting back to the fundamentals, which I think as IT professionals you'll all appreciate, not everyone starts at the same point. And so a number of the interviewees were saying, we have to preserve our legacy. There's no way we can get rid of it. It's been with us 20 years, 30 years. In many cases, it's a massive investment. We can't disrupt the business fundamentally to replace legacy, but we have to look at ways to bridge legacy with new applications. And in that respect, RPA came up numbers of times, that it could be a very effective bridge to help integrate traditional legacy systems with modern agile applications. So that was one particularly important path. The other important path said, we will not live any longer with legacy. We've got to get rid of it, particularly the old traditional core systems. And therefore, the path was really open to rethink fundamentally the core processes of the business. And again, we had some terrific examples of how companies have gone back to dear old business reengineering. They've been looking at what are the critical business processes that add value to the business, and how can we now think about those processes using the most modern technologies, automation, cloud, mobility, etc. So really a divergence here between we've got to live with our legacy, but we've got to patch it up, perhaps throw a bit of software as a service around it, plenty of RPA, and we'll get by, or we just can't survive with this noose around our necks. We've got to actually throw it away and go for a complete re-platforming in cloud, using Agile, DevOps, and all those good things.
Let's discuss that. That's really, really interesting, Roger. Adam, why don't we see what your vision is? I mean, what's your vision on legacy in a big bank? Are you living with it? Are you getting rid of it? And what's the role of automation, RPA in that frame in your organization?
Hendrik and Roger, you're again touching, very, very interesting point. We have 100 years legacy, and in the PKO, so serving the 10 million customers. So you can imagine that there is a huge different environment and the system in place in order to serve our customer. But so our strategy is to be not only the bank, to be the technological company with the banking license. So, and our assumption to be the autonomous is something what we are trying to reach, and we are working on the different layer in the organization, starting from the IT, from my just surroundings. So continuous delivery, continuous deployment is something what is the obvious. In order to assure the transformation and the rapid change of our teams, the agile teams, we need to apply the automation for the deployment. And this we are in progress. In some teams are already doing this. In some teams, unfortunately, are still struggling. But I believe short time we will be fully automated. Second thing, it's if we are talking about the cloud and the security in the cloud, the fully automation of the building the environment. So using the Terraform script, which have to be implemented in the way that you are simply repeatedly built environment on demand by the customers, our customers, so internal customers, in the secure and repeatable way. So this is the second thing. Third thing, we are talking the RPA, what Roger mentioned, and we have today. We have also the Vargha. This is something what we are using massively. We already implement 110 robots, which is equivalent of the 1,700 people which are working in the organization, and we are talking about the 30 million transactions that we are already covering in 2020. And this is the third thing. And the fourth thing is something what I'm really proud of is the automation in the sense that using the artificial intelligence in three areas. One area is direct communication with the customer via our mobile banking application. When we are talking about the talk to eco, the contextual discussion with our mobile app in order to conduct the transaction, to buy some products, to even ask about the weather in the particular place. Second thing is the service the customers in the direct channel. So we are talking about the contact center. So in the bot is able to speak with the customer in order to recognize what are the intention of the call. And second, in this service customer via voice is the overdue installment, so negotiation with the customer when the next installment is able to do. And this is something what we are really proud of. And the one thing which is not necessary directly from the banking sector, but because of we are the largest bank with the best digital footprint in Poland, we also help our customers, maybe not the customers, our healthcare system in order to implement the vaccination system for the society. And one of the most important thing, it was the bot who, based on the localization of the particular customer, was providing in the automatic way the appointment for the vaccination. And this will somehow cover the significant part of the traffic from the citizens to the healthcare system in order to get the appointment for the vaccination. So this part related to automation, this part related to this general approach to the how to use the technology and how to apply for the business, for the operation is very important, and we are doing this. And one last thing, which is the newest one, but is very crucial. We also run the project on MLOps in order to validate the model of the risk and from the propensity models. And we see that we are able to shrink the time necessary to validate the model in order to, after some change, from the month to the day. And this is something what we are really proud of, and we believe this is the best, the most significant influence, especially when we are talking about serving the 10,000 million of customers and on the daily sales of the loans on the level of 50-60 millions zlotys. So this is a significant tuning of the models is something what giving us the significant value.
Okay, great. Dimitris, you want to add to this? How is that at Ferrovial?
I hear a lot of analogies of our own journey, despite of the sector. No, for us, automation in particular, knowing that we have a lot of also legacy and we have gained volume and introduced with M&A operation, a lot of companies at the end, the different conception of the system force us to extract, to implement, and to consolidate. And automation in the last year has been the anchor in order to not survive, try to keep alive the boat, while at the same time we're defining our new future in a more modular, in a much more plug and play way of working. No, it is interesting how progressively we have transferred to the final user the responsibility of conceiving the definition of the solutions. No, we are not anymore taking the role, taking the responsibility of from the beginning till the end conceive the solutions. They are demanding much more having the responsibility to update, and we are facing one additional problem that Vargha and his team probably knows very well, is how to preserve in an industrialized RPA environment the consistency across the year, how to adopt the governance, how to guarantee that all the implementation, those 1,200 virtual people that Adam referred, are synchronized when we are suffering an update and when we have continuous deployment, and how to implement automatic tests in order to validate that everything is orchestrated with the power of an RPA. No? We are not struggling facing that's going to be our next frontier, how to, after gaining scale, industrialize and combine ML ops, the deployment of all the algorithms, where in many occasions have RPA to extract information, to inject information, to populate the data lakes, and how to preserve that without an increased number of administration requirements. No? I think that's the next frontier of the platform, mature as the UiPath.
Technology will come at the rescue, Dimitri. It is.
Yeah, thank you. maybe the day. But the adoption has been very, very positive. And our goal is to progressively transfer more the responsibility to define flows and interactions to the final user. No? There is a risk if they don't know exactly what they are doing and they don't have the sensibility. So to educate a lot the potential of those kind of tools. And the negative side, if they don't use properly, it's something that we are trying to anticipate from the beginning, but we want to decentralize as much as possible this in order to cover all the granular problems that we are not able to tackle from a central point of view.
Okay, I'm going to launch a poll on exactly this question here for those that are following us here on Zoom. And the question is, what is your most suitable pathway to enterprise automation? So is it replacing repetitive work with RPA software? Is it using RPA to bridge legacy and modern application? Are you undertaking comprehensive process re-engineering? Or are you replacing legacy systems entirely with modern solutions? So what is your strategy for that? Now, I hear that we have thousands of FTEs in bots, and that the next step is to orchestrate all that, to create the governance of that, to manage all that. Sanjay, if I remember well, you were talking about bots, managing bots, and in your bot factory. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, I'm sure Adam and others are slightly ahead of the curve on us, right? So in terms of the question that you just asked, Hendrik, we're in the camp of actually ticking all the boxes. So we
I was going to say, you need all of the above also
you need all of the above, right? Because with technology, you have a full toolbox and you may as well use all of them. So we started on the simplification agenda a few years ago, where we use sort of traditional, I'll call it traditional, sort of, pre-configured off-the-shelf SaaS solutions or other solutions to replace some of the old ways of working. And then we've sort of moved to the next wave in our journey, which is trying some more advanced technology. So whether that's analytics or RPA, or some of the other technologies out there. So we've got to a point where in our early pilots, Roger touched on this, we started back office and front office, interestingly. So finance for the back office stuff, where predominantly it was taking from our core financial systems and then connecting to other, I wouldn't say legacy, but closed systems. So finance uses multiple systems in their sort of closed process, whether it's month-end close or financial reporting. So bots was to connect those things. So we'd eliminate some of the manual workflow elements of it. We remove the sort of Excel, as being the font of all knowledge, but also within our supply chain, where we were connecting to our customers and making that interface a lot easier. And where we've got to now is we have I'll call it a mini bot factory compared to Adam's 1,700 people equivalent, because we didn't have that level of sort of automation. But we have got to a point where we now need to orchestrate the bots. And so we're not removing the human being. The human being is now managing a bot factory, which is a factory of bots that are orchestrating bots, because bots can sometimes fall over or fall asleep or fail, and someone needs to be managing them, and you can't have human beings doing that. So that's the level that we're now getting into, which, again, I'm sure the more mature have already experienced, but it is that factory concept and having bots managing bots, but they're having human beings overseeing that and making sure that the whole factory process is working.
Interesting. Vargha, could you chip in on this? How are we managing sleeping bots? Apparently, that's an interesting concept.
Well, I'm not sure what he means by sleeping bots, but but bots are, like every technology, they do require monitoring. So, in our case, we have what we call the orchestrator, plus we're adding new tools such as Insight, we call it. So you need indeed to be able to monitor bots. I would like to point out that overwhelmingly, I don't have the exact percentage in my head, but it is about 80% of the time when a bot actually stops functioning is usually an underlying infrastructure of application issue rather than a bot issue. When scripts have been written properly and underlying application and infrastructures are working properly, there are very, very little bots sleeping. But that's in an ideal world. In the real world, indeed, there are scripts that are not written properly, there are infrastructures that don't work 100%, and there are applications that's changed without having, been informed the people who have actually written the bots. So yes, there is, when you do it at the industrial scale, there is an element of obviously bot or bot supervision. But again, with tools that we're providing, this is something that can be done relatively efficiently, I would say.
Okay, good. We've got a question. So if you could come on board again, we have an interesting question from the audience here. So if you can fire that to our panel, please.
So the question from Chris Dax is, are there any new demands on security and automation? Are there any new kinds of attacks where we really start seeing special types of attacks abusing the bots? And how do we manage that? How do we make sure that the end person talking to a bot is actually a valid customer and not just another bot starting to attack your bot and your operations?
So wants to attack that question?
Maybe I can. When we launched the Power Automate platform from Microsoft, basically we noticed that users could do a lot more than initially what we wanted to do. So we had to put a whole framework around making sure that with the automation, that only the users could do the things within the framework that they're allowed to work. Now, I think in terms of security, I think it's an ongoing thing that you need to realize that hackers also use all the tools. Hackers use the power of automation, and so you need to keep up. So each time basically that you make something available, whether it's internal or external, you need to have done the full testing to make sure that you haven't opened up any possible vulnerabilities just by leaving out the human validation if something makes sense or not.
Okay, thank you, Kurt.
Yeah, if I can jump also to this question, what we see in the banking, especially during the pandemic, that it's potential hackers not trying to breach the protection of the security measure of the bank. They're trying to attack the environment of the customer, the mobile environment. So the responsibility for the service provider, especially for the banking, is now much more wider in comparison to the past. So we are responsible for checking if the environment of the end user environment, the customer environment, the mobile environment is really safe in order to provide the services. What we are facing, that our customers were exposed for some social threats, especially. They are asked to, they are lure with some special offer for buying the bitcoins or some other transaction. They are providing all the credentials for the imposters and so on. So this is for us and now we are talking once again about the artificial intelligence and some fraud management models in order to check the environment of the customer and assure that this particular transaction is legitimate or is not. And this now during this pandemic time, it's now much more important in comparison to which it was in the past. Using, of course, the bots or some direct communication, it's a separate channel, but it doesn't change anything, because you still need to focus on the customer environment.
Okay. Let's go back to the research, Roger. What is the second finding that came out of your research on workflow automation?
Yes, this really concerns the whole IT function. And we do detect, and we talk to CIOs across the world, that there is a bit of an existential crisis here. In a world where businesses can acquire sophisticated tools, RPA, AI, undertake low-code developments, what is the long-term role of the IT organization? Question that's been asked for many years, but I think it's even more open-ended today. So one of the answers to that is that many of the organizations we spoke to have said that we have to be able to enable all these developments. We can't just allow them to take place in splendid isolation. And of course, we had a recent CIONEXT on the question of agile versus fragile. How agile can you be? What controls, what guardrails do you need to put in place to ensure that all those business-led developments actually work for the entire group? And so much attention, I think, in the IT world has been focused actually on infrastructure as well as applications, open architectures, platforms that will enable a business, data lakes, which will actually consolidate and clean up all the data assets of the organization. So I think infrastructure stretches well beyond the wires today. It's well beyond the data centers. It's all about open APIs. It's all about data lakes. It's a range of things that are absolutely necessary in an environment where the businesses take more and more control over the end applications. And as someone said to me, when someone is touching the code, that's our department, that's IT, but we'll leave the rest to the businesses. And I think everyone recognizes that over time, citizen development is the way to go. The tools are now mature enough to really allow educated business users to apply these tools for their own purposes.
Okay, let's discuss that topic. Karsten, what is your view, your strategy on citizen development, low code? How do you want to empower the people at Zeiss?
Well, first of all, Roger, thanks for the dangerous message with the existential crisis. I don't see IT in an existential crisis, by the way. It's more like the technology is there and we can all use the technology, low code, no code and things like that. But there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. Yes, at the end of the day, it's an IT job to integrate the stuff into the backend systems, yes. But it's also making sure that the security is properly set, making sure that data protection rules are properly met. This is something that we within IT, I would say, can help the user or the guy who wants to take the technology. And then let's embrace the technology and not do the role split of IT and non-IT. It's more like the make or buy or collaborate approach. You know, what is the stuff that should be done by IT because they can do it the better way? What is the stuff we can get off the shelf? And what is the stuff we have someone else develop it for us? And then we can also answer the question of the sourcing mix, like how's the organization of IT going to look like in terms of roles, in terms of activities and size, and also what is outside IT. So I see it more like the boundaries are more and more loosened up. It's not the plain real IT job anymore. It's more going into the IT digital world. And, you know, being an IT guy or a digital guy, at the end of the day, it's one of those topics. You know, everything ends in an IT system or in a process which will then go into an IT system. So I think the future is safe for IT.
Anyone wants to add to that?
Yeah, I really share the Karsten's point of view. It's not an and or. That's why I use the word co-production. It's business and IT co-production. I think more and more low code is a reality. There is nothing about fighting. It's a good thing. But IT's role of curating and providing the frame, the security frame, the benchmark, and curating what citizen developers are doing is actually a very important role. You can't have just citizen development without a curation role and an overall standards that is being driven ultimately by IT. So IT becomes an enabler of citizen development rather than a victim, if I may say, to use that word, of citizen development. It just allows to go faster and increase what an organization can do.
I do think, though, as IT leaders, it is beholden on us to transform IT in line with or ahead of the trends that we're seeing. So if we stand still, I can understand the existential comment, right, which is that requirement for coding and hiding things and taking a long time will get superseded by digital natives that come along and say, actually, I can do that myself, thank you very much. But if we're collaborating with them and keeping ahead of them, and actually in some cases educating them what technology can do, and therefore changing our own skill set, so in my case, moving from traditional waterfall to more agile, Scrum-based, bringing more cloud-based architecture and engineers in place, as opposed to the traditional sort of physical systems engineers. If you're evolving your capabilities in your function and then being very conscious about what do you want to keep as capabilities in-house that you can partner with the business, and then what capabilities do you want to source externally with others that can do it much more lower cost or higher scale than you, then I think then there is a role for IT as it evolves. But I think if we stand still, then I can imagine that stretch from the business saying, well, actually, we can do this better, faster, cheaper.
It is interesting. Oh, sorry.
Now we're going to say, we started some time ago with what I would call enterprise automation. So we have UiPath, but we provided the framework and we trained all the centers of expertise that are now in the business. So basically, they have a certain autonomy to do things, but it is within a given framework. And when we enabled the Power Automate, which is more like automating what happens on your laptop, it was the same. So we set some boundaries, but then I think it's to the point that SANJAY makes, that if the business comes to you that, hey, I've seen these tools, why don't you have them? Then I think it's too late. So you need to proactively, I think, realize what is out there and make things available whilst keeping or setting a certain framework, both in terms of rules, data privacy and security.
If I can add something to what was said by CARSTEN and Kurt, it's like now almost every business line in the organization is rely on the IT. So if you want to be organization which is changing in the way that is expected by the environment that you are working or you are competing, then for sure you need to assure this technology savvy business people in the organization. So your role in this moment is to try to let them go and do the change in the IT. We need to educate the business. We need to, try to improve, to reskill, to upskill them in order to give them this kind of ability to conduct the change, to provide the service for the customer. And only in this way, on this collaboration, I believe, when you are talking, for instance, in the financial sector, only in this way we are able to compete with the technology company which are already stepping in on our business field. So
just to add on top, in our experience, something that worked very well and in reality was the beginning of the inflection point was to align goals and purposes, and to realize that to generate impact was the common goal, and that pursuit to achieve that impact or to improve the customer experience or to accelerate certain things was the common playground where the teams had the technology as a catalyzer, no? And in that respect, the borders of the divisions start to become a bit more blurry, no? because both teams had the same goal, and that was not before. No, traditionally we're receptors of the necessities, and now we are generator of ideas. That's the reason why in my reality I have the innovation at the second hat, because the conception of how fast we can develop new opportunities once we use the technology is becoming a reality across domains, across divisions. Yeah.
Okay, let's close this chapter on workflow automation.